we're going to evaluate this article here. So some potential challenges we might face is we might face or see some forms of clickbait. This particular source is funded primarily by advertisements, so we'll see a lot of advertisements. And so we want to plan for those distractions as readers. All right, so we're going to go into this article here. There's a link to it on my clipboard there, and I can also, in this Jamboard, add another sticky note for any notes that we need to take, any pausing that we need to do. And so we're going to jump into this article here and take a look at first the article. And so for this first reading, I want to immediately preview this article to see the length, perhaps. I want to determine how much stamina I need for this article here, but I also, as I'm doing this, I want to look for any specific subtitles that might help give me a better idea of what this is going to cover. In addition to that, it also, as I'm scanning and I'm skimming, what I'm also able to see are the distractors that we plan for in the beginning stages as we approach this online reading task here. So we've got new phases, we've got worse behind us, question mark, a focus on the most vulnerable. Okay, so the article tends to continue on talking primarily about political policies in place, and it kind of ends there. So we're going to come back up to the top here, and immediately after this is where we really have to consider who wrote this, right? And what might motivate them to write this story. So as you can see here, WebMD will give me this author's information here through a hyperlink. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that as an expert detective here and seeing who wrote this. And I want to make a plan. I want to make a flexible plan here to kind of go back and forth. I want to read a little bit about Miss Kathleen here and see what the totality of this person's work might be. And so that gives me a little bit of information here. Previously wrote for a travel health column. Credentials is a Los Angeles-based journalist specializing in health, fitness, and behavior topics. So not necessarily a specialization in medical or, say, pandemics. It's not a doctor, of course, so we have to ask ourselves, what does that mean? What could that imply? But it does look like she's done some good reporting in several related areas and has received awards, public education awards for excellence in plastic surgery journalism, and so forth. So we could potentially give her a bit of a pass here, but we do want to be mindful that she may not necessarily be an expert in covering the pandemic. So we've previewed the text. We've kind of set our plan moving forward and how we're going to read this. We want to plan for any distractors, advertisements galore at the top and on the right hand side, just to ensure that we stay focused. All right, so what I'm going to do as a reader, I'm going to begin looking at also the relevance here in terms of date, because this question really is a question that is a contemporary question that everyone has on their minds. And so it is almost 2 months old here. So this is an article that in this case really needs to be pretty up to date. I would say this is a little bit past my comfort zone as far as relatability and how quickly this came out, or how recently this came out. So we want to look at timing, especially with this topic. Okay, so I want to determine what my goals are, what my purpose is here, and it's really to evaluate the source, evaluate the author, and look at the motivations. So we've done that. I want to make some predictions here about what about the text, right? What might I learn about this text by reading this, and what information. How close am I going to get to an answer here, right? So obviously I'm going to navigate the text. I want to see, investigate several things here, like perhaps an agenda. Now, WebMD is obviously a source that typically pops up very often for many people, and that's could be primarily to what we discussed about the algorithm and perhaps the Google AdSense business, in terms of if I want to appear on the first page, I can usually buy my way to the first page. So I do want to consider that as well. But let's go into the reading itself, right? We want to look at what might be some key phrases here or citations that this person makes. Obviously, Joe Biden is cited several times, especially in the beginning here, which may have sparked the article to be written for the readership, because he came on 60 Minutes recently, CBS 60 Minutes, and made a statement about the pandemic. So that's being reported here. And eventually it comes to several pieces of numerical data, so we want to consider that. Oh, and also too, we see another distractor here, but we want to stay focused and perhaps come back to this tweet, maybe investigate who this person is as we follow suit and evaluate just this particular article here. Again, so as I begin to read, I want to monitor my understanding here. So far, still very cloudy, not a clear-cut answer here. However, I do have some good data to run off of, so I can start to read more about perhaps a balancing act, and potentially what we're beginning to see here is additional credentialing from other sources that are cited. So MD being medical doctor. This is the first medical doctor that is cited in the text here. So I do want to take note of that. I want to make sure that I find a quote that supports perhaps this author's, Kathleen's, point of view. And from the looks of it, it looks pretty informative. I don't see so far, from what I can read here, an explicit opinion, but just based on what she's deciding to focus on, it looks as though the quotes that she's using from others would indicate that her position is similar to theirs, that it's not over. Okay, so I want to make sure to take note of that. I can always come back to my my little notepad here. I can create a sticky note. The last step that we want to consider as we strategize in our reading is to monitor and respond by summing up the claims that have been made. And I've been kind of doing that as we go throughout here. We want to pause. We want to take time to read the entire article. We want to sum up these claims. We want to consider, closely monitor for relevance to the purpose that we came in for, which is to evaluate the source, try to find an answer to our question. We want to ask further questions about WebMD, about this author, such as what other work has this person done? Maybe other questions like if there's another tweet that comes up here, for example, who is this person? What credentials do they have? And what is the point here of making sure that this also is relevant information and text for our purpose? All right. So that's kind of a walkthrough of how we would approach the evaluation of a source. And again, we would want to make sure that we contribute our own ideas. We synthesize what we came up with, some questions that we would ponder upon to finish this out, and I'll come back to the top here. Go and read the additional articles that are in the Jamboard. What additional information can we gather that would answer this question? In what ways do the authors portray this same news event differently? Right? Do others report that the pandemic is indeed over? And how is that? Right? How is that these other sources will indicate a different point of view based on what we read here. All right, so this hopefully will give you a good sense of how to move forward and gradually begin to do this yourself and evaluate these additional sources here that are in the Jamboard. All right, thank you.